go out of my way to make sure that my characters get into those unhealthy states, that they are put under so much stress that they exhibit the worst aspects of their behavior. Hey everybody, I am so excited about today's video. I get to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, which is personality analysis, and B, my favorite part in the writing process. So I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm absolutely obsessed with personality design. When I first figured out about Myers-Briggs, I think I was pretty annoying to everyone in my life because I made everyone take the test so that I could analyze them and get to know them on a deeper level. So it should come as no surprise that when Enneagram rolled around, I was hook, line, and sinker. Is that a phrase? Hook, line, and sinker? Hook, line, and whatever. You get it. As a matter of fact, I love the Enneagram so much that I consider it an integral part of my writing process now. I don't really think it's that much of a surprise that writers are fascinated with the hows and whys of human behavior. It's kind of essential to the craft of writing. We're telling stories here, which means that we need to understand human behavior and we need to understand why people make the choices that they do. It's the basis of what makes good characterization and ultimately good story. And if I'm concerned with anything about my characters, it's definitely the hows and whys behind their actions. Yes, plot is important. We know that I value plot very deeply. I've done several videos on it. We know that I'm a plotter. I consider the events of the story to be integral to keeping it moving forward. However, if you don't have well fleshed out characters, how they're interacting with those events that are happening is going to feel empty. It's gonna feel like you've got just little puppets running around in a story that is solely motivated by plot, which is not exactly what we want. We want it to be well-rounded and feel full and rich, which character design is super important for that. And using something like the Enneagram to round out your characters is a wonderful way to add depth and meaning behind their choices. So before I run away with myself, let's get into a little bit of what the Enneagram actually is. The Enneagram is essentially just a personality typing system that allows you to understand how people interpret the world and manage their emotions. And this is based on core childhood fears and childhood experiences that create these core fears for you. It's divided into 9 essential types or tropes, which is super convenient for storytelling because we know it's all about troping and understanding narrative. I do think the original intent of this system is to be used in places like business and personal growth and personal development, but of course it works for writers because we are all about creating characters that feel real and authentic. So we should really understand how they are created as a whole person and a whole being. But don't worry, I am not so methodical that I just assign an Enneagram number straight off the bat to my characters and then build the story around that. I definitely maintain a lot of romanticism as a writer where I like the characters to come to me and speak to me, and I like to get to know them and figure them out. But I'll do this kind of first, once I get to know them, then I get to go do the fun part and I'll actually take the Enneagram test as the character, which is super revealing sometimes because some of my characters are really obvious straight off the bat and I can type them right away, but others are a little more nuanced. So taking the Enneagram quiz or test is a great way for me to get to know them on a deeper level. The prompts asked by the Enneagram quiz is honestly a great way to get to understand the whys and the hows behind your character, even if you're not interested in the final result. It asks things like, do you get depressed easily? Are you ambitious? Do you have a romantic nature? Are you concerned with correcting people's behavior? Do you shy away from confrontation? These are obviously all really helpful ways to understand characters better. And I do want to say that I am just dipping my toe into Enneagram here. The way that the system works is so complex and there are so many facets and elements of it that I honestly could do a really long series where you only interpret character design and go really in depth into it. but I'm really kind of just scratching the surface and explaining how I personally use it in my day-to-day life as a writer. So let's dive into these 9 tropes a little more deeply. I am going to use some examples so that we can get to understand them better, but don't worry, this time I'm going to keep all of the examples within the same universe so that we can understand it a little better across a narrative arc. And for my example, I'm going to go with one of my tried and true fandoms, which is Lord of the Rings. If you haven't seen or read Lord of the Rings, I don't know why you're on this channel in the first place. Go watch it, spend the 9 hours, go read it, however many hours that takes you, and come back. And please don't at me in the comments if you disagree with how I have troped everyone, how I've assigned everyone, because I know there's gonna be some discourse. I mean, you know what? Go ahead. Go ahead and comment down there. I'd love to have a conversation about it. The beauty of the Enneagram is that even if you are a certain number or a certain category, when you're under stress or during certain situations, you can actually mimic or mask as another type entirely as a coping mechanism. The whole thing is super dynamic and interesting. All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna go 1 through 9 chronologically. Up first is the reformer. This would be Aragorn. As a 1, he's really rational and idealistic. He believes in morality and a sense of justice and really wants to adhere to ethics and a perfectionist ideal of how he sees society. Ultimately, 1s want things done the right way. Next up, we've got the helper. That would be Samwise Gamgee, everybody. I don't think this is any surprise to anyone. Helpers are a really caring and intuitive type. As we see with Sam, he can verge on people-pleasing and can get possessive, but ultimately, 2s are very thoughtful and considerate. They are here to help. Number 3 is the achiever or the performer. That would be Gimli. 3s are honestly really pragmatic, but they can be really concerned with external appearance. Being the best is really important to them, so their image can mean a great deal. Oftentimes, they're hiding intense feelings underneath the surface. Number 4, the individualist. This is often referred to as the romantic. That is absolutely Eowyn. 4s are known to be the sensitive type. They're often withdrawn, keeping to themselves, but they can be very expressive and dramatic. Oftentimes, they're the artists in the group. They're really looking to live their life as authentically as possible and be unapologetically their own person. Number 5, the investigator. I'm gonna go with Gandalf here. It's pretty obvious. 5s are also known as the observer. They're very cerebral and can get stuck in their head and can often be intense or secretive, but they really love gathering information, learning new things, and sharing that information with people. Number 6, the loyalist. That is absolutely Frodo. He epitomizes this trope. Frodo is committed and responsible and engaging and friendly. He's liked by everybody, and he's really concerned with safety and security. I mean, if we remember from the start, he never even really wants to leave the Shire. Number 7, the enthusiast, the fun ones in the group. I think both Merry and Pippin categorize into this one. 7s are fun-loving and spontaneous and versatile, but they can be a little distractible and scattered. They're definitely light and non-confrontational. They exude positivity and energy. You'll definitely recognize these as the ones that want to have a good time. Number 8, the challenger or the protector. Honestly, this one's very similar to number 1, just different in a few different ways. That's absolutely Boromir. 8s are known as the protector. They are very powerful and dominating. They can have a lot of self-confidence and be really decisive and sometimes confrontational. But ultimately, they really have a desire to protect themselves and protect the people that they consider are in their inner circle. And number 9, the peacemaker, the mediator. That's gonna be Legolas. As a 9, he is very easygoing and agreeable and can be sometimes complacent, but ultimately he's about keeping the peace. They have a real ability to see the bigger picture at all times. And it also means they can be good listeners and give pretty good advice. Okay, so now that we have a better idea of what the characters categorize within Lord of the Rings, we can take a deeper look at how their tropes perform under pressure and under stress. Because remember, the essential basis of the Enneagram is centered around our core fears and motivations. For example, the fours, the individualists, there are special unicorns. They want to be super unique. This means that their core fear is of living a life without importance, of being insignificant. That's why Eowyn is absolutely perfect for this role. She actually pretty much states this as her biggest fear straight away.
The women of this country learned long ago. Those without swords can still die upon them. I fear neither death nor pain.
What do you fear, my lady?
A cage. To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them. And all chance of valor has gone beyond recall or desire.
Or another example, the two, the helpers. Of course, this is Samwise Gamgee. His biggest fear is of being unloved, of having no one need him. So of course it makes sense that he honestly rather would die than disappoint Gandalf or let Frodo down, as we can see in this pivotal scene.
Not alone! Frodo! Mr. Frodo!
No, Sam.
Go back, Sam! I'm going to Mordor alone. Of course you are. And I'm coming with you! You can't swim! Sam! Sam! I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to.
Of course, all of the different types base their behaviors around these core fears. I'll list them all out here, but I'm not really going to go into the nitty-gritty of each. I'll let you do that on your own. But essentially, I use this method to help me understand what my characters are afraid of. And honestly, if I'm thinking about it from a childhood trauma or childhood experience aspect, it makes backstory much easier to write. Now, the final thing I wanted to talk about today is how the Enneagram types mutate and shift when they are under stress or when they are in unhealthy states. As I mentioned before, the different types can change entirely. And any good writer worth their salt knows that good story happens when you put your characters under stress, because that's when they find the motivation to change. That is what makes good storytelling. And honestly, it's when things get really fun as a writer because you really get to put them through the ringer. So after I define my characters' types and figure out what they are, I usually reference how they interact with their personality under stress. As a matter of fact, this is one of the things that I keep in my Scrivener document. I have a whole section where all I have is the Enneagram and how they perform and where they move to in situations of stress or when they're unhealthy versus healthy. So I can refer to this if needed, if I get stuck, or if I just want a little reminder and want to make sure that my character is remaining true to themselves and is on track with their behavior, because it really helps me stay on track with who they are as a person and make them feel really unique as individual beings. For example, yes, Aragorn is a 1 and he's morally just and right and true, but that's only if he's in a healthy mental state. If you put him under a lot of stress, or maybe he moves towards a more unhealthy state, his 1 type can move towards something that's a little more critical and judgmental and quick to anger.
Boyahun, Neled Herain, Dan Carminig,
Siberia Farhun, Amar Nanededoras.
Aragorn, Nedin Dagor, Hen Urir Othari, Natha Dagathair.
Then I shall die as one of them.
Or Frodo, our 6, the loyalist, who is usually only concerned with remaining safe and having support. If you put him under stress, he's gonna kind of become the opposite of that. He's gonna become doubtful and anxious and suspicious.
I didn't mean to go so far. I was just so angry. Here, just rest a bit. I'm all right. No, you're not all right. You're exhausted. It's that Gollum. It's this place. It's that thing around your neck. I could help a bit. I could carry it for a while. I could carry it. Share the load. Get away! I don't want to keep it. I just want to help.
See, he wants it for himself.
Shut up, you! Go away! Get out of here!
No, Sam. It's you. I'm sorry, Sam.
But he's a liar. He's poisoned you against me.
You can't help me anymore.
You don't mean that.
Go home.
So how do I take this into account when I'm working on character growth? I go out of my way to make sure that my characters get into those unhealthy states, that they are put under so much stress that they exhibit the worst aspects of their behavior. Because only by going through that can they learn how to overcome it and come out on the other side. For instance, when Frodo banishes Sam, he's effectively putting them both into the worst case scenario for their types. He loses his support, he loses his best friend, the person who's going to keep him safe, which is the worst thing that could happen to a 6. And poor Sam, who only wants to be loved and wants to be helpful, is told he is unloved and he is unwanted and unneeded. They are both forced into the absolute worst case scenario that could happen to them. They are forced to confront their core fear. And they have to endure these unhealthy states so they can live through it and get to the other side, so that they can understand the mistakes that they've made that have led them to this situation, so that their character can grow through it and grow out of that immature behavior. And I can also make sure that once I know all my characters and their types, if something intense happens in my plot, that they're reacting according to who they are as a person. This allows a wide cast of characters to react super uniquely to the same stressful event, making my story feel super impactful and authentic and real. For instance, let's take a look at one of the major stress points for the Fellowship of the Ring. That would be when Gandalf falls to the Balrog. Sorry, spoilers, but come on. Everybody knows that happens now, right? This is a huge point in the plot, a major stress for everybody, but everyone reacts uniquely to it.
Fly, you fools!
So we see immediately Frodo is distraught at losing the one person that is the most supportive. Boromir, our 8, remember, he wants to protect. He's only concerned with getting Frodo out of there and saving it. Aragorn is almost like frozen in disbelief because he's a 1. He's the reformer. He believes in truth and justice and right and wrong, and something has happened that like completely challenges his reality. Gimli, our 3, goes into denial and tries to start fixing things on his own. Merry and Pippin collapse from the anxiety of everything. Legolas, our peacemaker, doesn't know what to do. He's off by himself, avoiding confrontation entirely.
Legolas, get them out.
And then Aragorn seems very detached and
them a
removed.
moment, for pity's sake.
Boromir
Nightfall
immediately
these
tries
hills
to
will be
protect
swarming
the
with
others
orcs.
and gain control as an 8.
We must reach the woods of LOTR. Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, get them up. On your feet, Sam. Frodo?
And this is the first time we really see Frodo under so much stress that he starts to pull away from the group entirely, which is textbook behavior for a 6. They want to go it alone when they think no one is there to support them. So, hopefully you can see how using the Enneagram can help you craft moving and powerful characters that feel authentic and real to true human behavior. Yes, a lot of this does come naturally to writers. I'm not saying I sit down and have this thing open the entire time I'm writing or how I craft a story. Generally, I align with it naturally, and generally I think that if you study human behavior, you kind of have an understanding that there are basic personalities for people that they align with. I really don't think Tolkien was sitting there thinking about the individual tropes of his characters as he was writing it. I mean, I don't know. Was he? Is there a Tolkien fan out there? Give me some insight. But that's why observing how people interact, how my friends and family and acquaintances behave and interact with one another is so important to me. I use this analysis and all this knowledge that I gain in my stories to make it believable. Now, there are tons of facets to the Enneagram. Like I said, you could go really in depth with this and get super intricate with how you apply it to your characters. I'm telling you how I specifically use it on mine and the depth that I go to when I'm writing my books. If I'm really stuck on a scene and I can't get past it, or I have a block or characters aren't behaving, sometimes I'll do a little bit of a deeper dive and look more intricately into the types just to kind of get me through that. But other than that, this is essentially how I use the Enneagram on the daily as a writer. I'd love to hear if you have something similar to the Enneagram that you use, or if you use the Enneagram currently for your writing process and how you go about doing that. Like I say in pretty much every video, I am always adapting my craft and I want to hear what other people are doing so that I can make adjustments to how I approach storytelling, because I think that the only way to make it better and make it more authentic is to learn from other people and share our knowledge. And I know some of you are going to disagree with me with my labeling of the fellowship, so like I said earlier, let me have it in the comments below. I am excited to have a discourse about it if you think somebody should be a different trope than what they were. And as always, if you found this video helpful and you want to do me a solid, hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on everything new that I'm putting out. I am so thankful you sat down with me today, and I hope you have fun writing, and maybe go rewatch The Lord of the Rings, because after doing this video, I think it's time for a rewatch. Until next time, bye.